You are tuned in to Huntsville Insider. Your inside source for all things Huntsville. And now, here's Mike and Will.
Hello, Huntsville. What is happening, guys? This is Mike sitting here with the amazingly bearded Will Grice, and we are coming to you from Salty Nut Brewery. Yay! All right, guys. Today, on today's show, we have the gentlemen from the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrewfest. They are in the house today. We have Todd. We have Russ. We have Jason. We have Rich. And y'all know Will. So today, what we're going to be talking to you about is, like I said, the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrewfest, and kind of the ins and outs of it, where everything's going. Russ, you want to give us a quick breakdown?
Okay. Basically, the fest is on November 11th at Low Mill. It goes from 3 to 9 p.m. and it features homebrews from local homebrewers. We're going to have about 42 of them. So
Cool.
We look forward to having you there.
42 homebrewers.
That's correct.
That is a lot of homebrewers. Well, we're going to get into a lot of kind of, because I'm sure you know the specifics of the event. We're going to intro everybody real quick, though. So we have to my left, Todd.
Yeah.
Todd, what's your last name?
Swearingen.
Todd.
Swearingen.
Swearingen. All right. So how'd you get to Huntsville?
Oh, about 25 years ago, I graduated and got my first job offer from Boeing, and so I moved out here, and shortly thereafter is when I got into homebrewing.
Where'd you move from?
Houston.
From Houston, Texas to Huntsville, Alabama.
Graduated from Texas A&M.
Nice.
So
Okay.
now that they're in the SEC, I can watch them a lot more easily.
Well, yeah. Don't throw stuff at us if you see us on the road. So you have been in homebrew for how long?
I've been homebrewing for a little over 20 years.
Wow. So how's the beer here at Salty Nut?
That's pretty good. It's
pretty good.
I'm enjoying the brown ale. It's one of my favorite styles, so I'm pretty particular about it.
Yeah. So I'm still stuck on the hot blonde. You're honed in on the
It's
brown.
Yeah, the busted nut brown.
That's right. So as far as homebrew goes, when it first started, how did you get attracted into it?
Well, kind of by accident, really. When I first moved to the area, I got interested in better beer, but better beer back then was Miller Genuine Draft. So
Is there something wrong with that now?
that's all there was,
Yeah.
basically. And so a buddy of mine mentioned that he homebrewed, but I could never sync up to go and help him or watch or get involved. And
Yeah.
so right around that time, there was a little homebrew shop that opened up on Jordan Lane called Bama Brew. They didn't stay in business for very long because
not
the
familiar.
ABC hassled them out of business.
Guarantee they did.
And so that's how I got into it. It was basically doing extract kits, and
Okay.
then I got, progressively more involved into it. And I had actually moved away from Huntsville for about 2 years and moved back in '99. And that's when I found out about the local homebrew club. At that time, it was called Madison Sobriety Club. They had chosen that name as a joke.
Yeah.
And so I got involved with them, and that's when I got into all grain brewing. I was kind of apprehensive because it sounded really complicated and technical, and all the chemistry and all that. They convinced me to just jump in and do it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Freaking sweet. So, Russ,
Yes, sir.
how long you been in Huntsville, man?
Oh, gosh. Since early 80s, I guess.
Early 80s.
Yeah. I came here from Orlando.
Okay.
Mark Marietta. I had a friend of mine came up here, and he encouraged me to come up here. He said Huntsville's a great town to raise a family, and it is.
Okay.
It is absolutely one of the better towns to raise a family.
So you moved here from Orlando
That's correct.
to Huntsville.
Right. I'm originally an Alabama native, though.
Okay. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Montgomery. In fact,
The Gump.
my father was a state representative, and he was
Okay.
one of the ones that tried to push the bill way back when to allow draft beer in Alabama. Draft beer was not legal in
crazy.
Alabama until goodness, it was probably the late 70s. It was legal.
Draft beer wasn't legal in Alabama until the late 70s.
That's correct. It was legal here in this county because this is an interesting story. They knew they were going to be bringing the Germans here to help with doing the Moon program. They thought they wouldn't move here unless they had draft beer.
Are you kidding me?
So they allowed it only in Madison County.
So not only can we thank Mr. Von Braun for all the rockets, but
That's
we
right.
can thank him for
the draft beer.
Here's to you.
Right. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Very good. But I found an article just last week of had my father's name, how he was pursuing trying to get draft beer legalized.
That's awesome.
Because I remember as a kid driving to Florida, first thing my parents would do, as soon as we crossed straight line, they'd make a beeline to ABC store.
Yeah.
And they would sell little milk gallon jugs of draft beer. And my parents go get draft beer, and then we'd go drive back to where we're going.
That's good. So are you into homebrew as well?
I am into home brewing.
So hang on, let me back up real quick, Todd. What's your favorite beer you've ever homebrewed?
I can't answer that because I like them all. My taste, that's a nice thing about homebrewing is that you can brew what you want when you want. You don't have to wait for something to come out or wait for a brewery to make that particular style or whatever. You just make it. So it kind of goes seasonal. This time of year, I'd kind of say Oktoberfest because it's appropriate for the season.
Fair enough.
And the breweries start to brew those styles, and you can go and try them.
Yeah, here at Salty Nut, they have an Oktoberfest that's up right now.
In fact, I think all the local
most of them,
breweries currently have an Oktoberfest.
And so I think we're drinking. You guys are drinking the brown because last night we want to point that out. Depending on which night this goes out, Wednesday. Right. So we're here on Saturday. So Friday night, last night, we had Salty Nut Brewery bring home the best overall at the Pro Bono Brews. And that's hilarious because I stumbled on that. This is the one that Will was stumbling on last week. So Pro Bono Brews,
it's
2 times in a row. It's hard to say. 2017, the Brown brought home the best overall. So as far as right now, you're saying Oktoberfest. Russ, what about you?
I'm with Todd. My issues, initially I was really into IPAs. My tastes move around.
Yeah.
And it goes, sometimes it's seasonal, and I begin to like heavy Weissens. I focus on those, or then I'll move over to something else like the stouts. So, right now I'm more into the probably the sour wheats. The Berliner Weisses is probably my preferred right now, but it'll change in 3 or 4 months.
And I hear that the sour beers, those are an acquired taste, just like when you first get into beers.
Yeah,
and
when
stuff.
you first taste, you go, "What's wrong with this?"
Oh
thing?
man, yeah, I've said that numerous times, but the stuff does grow on you.
Yeah, right.
It really does. Mr. Cherry. Jason and I have known each other for a little while now. Jason kind of organized this. We really appreciate you. So Jason is actually the one that is responsible for the audio equipment and us coming to you in HD. So blame him, Huntsville.
If it sucks, it's my fault.
So Jason, how'd you get into Huntsville?
So my wife works for Northrop Grumman.
Okay.
And we ended up moving down here about 3 years ago, a little over 3 years, about 3.5, I guess now. And previous to Huntsville, we've been.
So you and I met about right when you guys moved down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we needed a place for our dog.
That's right.
So PetSpac was certainly the place to go for that.
Here's to Oscar. Here's to Oscar. Amazing, Mr. Squishy Face.
Oscar's very well. Was very well loved and very much missed.
Very much. And now you have Fuggles.
We got Fuggles.
And Fuggles is a bit of a local celebrity now. So because every time Jason and Aaron bring Fuggles out, we abduct him and we pass him around.
Yeah.
So you've been here for about 3.5 years. So how did you find the homebrew crowd here in Huntsville? Also, follow up, were you into homebrewing before you moved here?
Yes.
Okay. So where'd you come from?
So I'm originally from Buffalo. And
York?
Yeah. We're nothing like that.
No, nothing like that.
Couldn't be further, literally, geographically even speaking. So, the whole New York City thing is debunked.
I know. We had a long talk about this not too long ago.
Yeah.
That was very eye-opening.
I wish people would look at a map once in a while. It's pretty crazy. But the big thing is that, so I was not big into beer overall in New York. but I had moved from Buffalo to Charlotte, North Carolina, and was in Charlotte for about 9 years. And that's where I met my now wife, Erin.
Okay.
And she ended up getting her PhD in computer science in Charlotte. And then from that, we had an opportunity for her to move up to Western New York, because I have twin boys from a previous relationship that are up there. So I wanted to be close to them.
Sure.
And her opportunities, she happened to have an opportunity, a really good one, in Rochester. So we moved up to Rochester, which was only, about an hour and a half away from where my boys were, so I could see them often. And I'd started brewing in Charlotte, and had been brewing through Rochester and now into here. So I've been brewing for about 7 years now.
What was your first batch of beer that you made?
First batch of beer was a Forever Cherry Stout.
Forever Cherry Stout.
Yeah.
Because you have your own brand now. You have your stickers and all that stuff. And so what's your, kind of low-key stuff? What's it
I think
called?
that it's not unique. I mean, anybody that ends up kind of brewing, you kind of rah-rah, shush can buy. You've got your, hey, I'm doing something cool.
Okay.
And so
kind of like your own brand. So what's your brand?
Cherry Brewing.
Cherry Brewing. We got Russ Brewing.
I don't have a brand yet.
Todd and Russ
gotta
don't
get
have
a
a brand.
I just brew beer. I don't worry about naming it.
So,
definitely
Jason,
not a brand.
You got your first batch of beer. How was it?
Honestly, it was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I've had some homebrew from some people that start out that end up being pretty bad.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, there's a pretty well-established homebrewer that ends up having a pretty bad batch. I've been fairly lucky. I've only ever had one dumper.
Was it your second batch?
You don't brew
No,
often enough.
You're right. I should brew more. No, a funny story about that one. It was probably one of my best beers ever, but I ended up cold crashing it. And
explain that to us.
so, if you're going to end up moving through the process, you get, there's different temperature variations, and when you are trying to carbonate the beer in the very last step, you need to get it cold, serving temperature,
Sure.
before it will actually take the pressure. And I was doing that. I've got a computerized system that allows me to do the temperature.
Your system's
wherever I want.
computerized?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm shocked.
But
You live in Huntsville. There's a lot of crossover.
right.
Have you ever seen this, guys?
Yeah,
Good grief.
so, anyways, what happened was that me kind of being a dumbass and just not thinking about it, I basically hit go and took it from room temperature down to near freezing.
Yeah.
And I still had a blow-off tube in a blow-off bucket, which is again a part of the process. And I, like a dumbass, again, recurring theme here. I had some bleach water in my blow-off bucket.
Oh no, yeah.
And there's this thing called thermal contraction.
Yeah.
And it
Boyle's
created,
law.
yeah,
as well.
it created a vacuum, and you know what? Physics works. It still works in my house. Yeah. And what happened was that it had the mass of the beer shrunk in size because of it contracting because of the thermal contraction, and it had sucked up bleach water up the tube and into 5.5 gallons of beer.
Okay.
And I thought everything was great. And I said, all right, it's ready to pull out and carve, and I'm going to taste it just to make sure.
Sure.
And I tasted it, I'm like, what the hell is that? And it was like, God.
Honey, come here. You got to taste this good beer.
Yeah, you got to taste it. And
A little bit of bleach goes a long way.
That's right.
Yeah, a little bit of
clean
bleach
you
goes
out.
a real long way. And it was, you couldn't drink it, but it was, up to that point, before I cold crashed it, I had tested it before, and it was literally one of the best beers that I'd ever made. So there's a little soft spot in my heart now for realizing to double check things when I should. And physics.
Yeah.
Gotta love that. But
awesome.
As far as my favorite beer that I've probably ever brewed, I'd have to say it's probably my chocolate mint stout. So,
Chocolate mint stout.
Yeah, Todd's had it.
Yeah, I've had
Okay.
it. I was going to say that's the one that I remember of his as being pretty standout.
It's
mint
a
stout.
different, so it tastes like an Andy's chocolate mint.
I was going to say
No kidding.
Yeah.
the
That's
reason
right
it
up Will
stands
Grice's
out.
alley right there, man.
There you go.
reason it stands out for me is that a lot of those types of what I call novelty beers get really too complex and too much going on with them.
Yeah.
That one actually works really well. it blends well and is a nice overall beer.
Yeah, a lot of folks, they get really proud of them. They come in, they list everything that's in, as far as ingredients wise, and this is what I did here, and this is what I did here, and you taste it and you go, oh, it tastes like a beer.
Yeah.
But I've actually had the ice cream that you did, so that was phenomenal. Will, you had some
Yes,
too.
it was very, very good.
So,
And that's an example of a not great beer.
Yeah.
That's much better as ice cream.
so that, and yeah, Jason was telling me, we were, judge us please, we were at my son's birthday, his 2-year birthday, and Jason brought some ice cream that he had infused with a chocolate stout. Is that correct? Wait, no, that's not correct.
Partially.
So you tell me what you did with the ice cream, because he came out and they were in little tasting glasses, little shot glasses, and we all had some, and it's like we're all eating some, the adults only. And as we were taking a bite, everybody's eyes kind of just met and went, holy smokes, what in the world?
Yeah, so the beer that was in that ice cream is a Russian Imperial Stout.
Okay.
But it was a spiced Russian Imperial Stout. And in my opinion, it was overly spiced.
That's what I was getting at.
You know.
Like I said, a lot of times with the really funky, spicy novelty beers, they can kind of go south. Or, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't a bad beer, but it wasn't beer at that point. It was
it was too much going on.
Yeah, so when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. But
Or ice cream.
In your case, if you get crap beer, you make ice cream.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
And it was unbelievably caloric. So inside of that, you probably gained 20 pounds.
It was delicious. And you actually brought it to a tasting too, and I think everybody there at that tasting went bananas.
We brought it to a
over the
meeting.
stuff.
After one meeting, we had the beer and gave him our feedback on it. And then the next meeting, he brought it as an ice cream, and it was phenomenal.
I was at the one that he brought
Yeah,
the
that's
ice cream
right.
with, and that
was at Green
over at Green Bus, yes, and that was, oh, good grief. You had it once, you have it again, and you remember it in your head, hey, this was pretty good, but you have it again, it's like, oh, crap. I'm very glad that you drove that night too, so I really appreciate that. So, Mr. Rich, so how'd you get to Huntsville?
Graduated from Auburn and I needed a job, so I came here.
Eagle.
You have an electrical engineering degree, you come to Huntsville if you
You
want.
do. Are you from Alabama?
I'm not from Alabama.
Where'd you come from?
I graduated from high school in Wisconsin and kind of did a survey of decent engineering schools that didn't get snow. And Auburn made the list.
Auburn made the list. Wonderful.
And,
So
and they had Bo Jackson and Chuck Person and Charles Barkley, and so I was there at a fun time to be at Auburn.
that's really cool too. So we've been asking all the other guys, so what got you into home brewing?
I have some friends in St. Louis who, as you might imagine, St. Louis is a little more progressive in the beer laws and beer scene than
Are they
Alabama.
laid back there?
And
I
so
wonder why
this
they're
was
so laid back and Alabama's not.
But this was so 25 years ago.
ABC.
25 years ago, I'm in St. Louis visiting a friend, and we're just sitting out on his porch, and he comes up with 3 glasses of beer. It looks like Bass Ale. And we drink those beers, and he goes downstairs and comes back with 3 more glasses. And on the 3rd glass, I was like, what in the hell are we drinking? He says, oh, this is homebrew. I made this. I said, you got to teach me. He said, oh, it's a piece of cake. He said, you can make any kind of beer you want for the price of the cheapest 6-pack you can buy at the grocery store.
heard it.
As a young college
You heard it here
graduate, I
first
said,
on Huntsville Insider. Rich said, it's a piece of cake.
piece of
Brewing
cake.
homebrew. There you go.
So my friend in St. Louis basically taught me to brew beer by email over the internet. So I'd send him an email, and he'd send me something back. Said, no, that's not quite right. And so he said, just go to your local homebrew store, which should raise a flag for all the homebrewers here, and they'll sell you the grain, they'll mill it for you, and your first batch should just be like a simple pale ale. We'll just get 2 row base malt, a little bit of crystal malt, and some Northern Brewer hops, and you'll be set. So I went to the only homebrew store in town.
What was that at the time? Was it
It was Pearly Gates.
Pearly Gates? Okay.
Pearly Gates, yeah.
And they
used to
did
go
not
to
mill the
Westlaw,
grain
too.
for me.
No.
And they did have some brown powder in a pack that was supposed to be hop pellets. And what I brewed
Supposed to be.
was it resembled beer. I ended up milling the grain with a rolling pin in a sheet pan in my kitchen. It took about 3 hours to mill all the grain for a 5-gallon batch. So I solved that problem on the second batch. But so a lot of these guys probably started brewing extract beers, and so extracts, you can. I always liken it to making brownies. You can go to the convenience store and buy this cellophane wrapped brownie that tastes like crap. Looks like a brownie, will probably last years, but doesn't really taste great. And then you can get brownie mix, and there's some really good brownie mixes that you can buy. Crack an egg, add a little bit of oil and some water, throw them in the oven, and you get good brownies, but it's the same every time. And or you can make it from scratch, and you can vary your recipe however you want.
Okay.
So the extract brewing, basically they take all your grains, they convert the starches into sugars, and then they dehydrate it. You can get a powder or a syrup, cook it on a pot in your kitchen. It's about a 2-hour process to make a halfway decent batch of beer. Making all grain is about a 6-hour process.
All right.
Well, most people start with that sort of intermediate step. For me, I went straight to all grain. I've brewed one extract batch in my life, and it was only because I thought I probably should try it at some point.
Best batch of beer you ever made?
The best batch I've ever made? Gosh, I've made some good beers. Probably my favorite batch. We, as a club, have done several barrel projects where everybody brews 5 or 10 gallons, and we fill a bourbon barrel. So I have a Buffalo Trace bourbon barrel in my garage that has had 8 batches of beer go through it.
Okay.
The first one was an Imperial Porter, and it was the best bourbon barrel beer that we've made, that I participated in. About 2 batches into that barrel, it soured, and then we started making Flanders Red Ale in there.
Yeah, I was in on that.
And year after year, the Flanders beers that come out of that are just fantastic, and it's unlike anything you can buy in town. Just a delicious beer. So that's probably my favorite.
Okay. What do you have currently in the fridge?
I have a black IPA. I have Oktoberfest. I have a sour saison. I have Flanders Red and Flanders Brown.
Okay.
And,
so in other words, we're all
porter.
going to Rich's house after this, and we're Ubering home. So, Will, what kind of beer do you? Sorry.
I know absolutely nothing about how beer is made. So, I know we've kind of touched on a little bit of it, but if you guys could help me out, and hopefully some of the listeners as well, just kind of a bird's eye view. What's the process for
it's a lot like making soup.
Okay.
If you're starting out as an extract brewer, like Rich said, you can just buy the ingredients and you mix it all together and you cook it. You boil it for about an hour, and you add the hops at certain points to get the amount of bitterness and the hop flavors that you want.
You say it's kind of like soup, right? Like
Super stew.
Soup? Like, are you tasting it?
No, there's no reason to taste it at that point.
Gotcha.
But basically, once you've cooked it and extracted the bitterness and everything, you chill it down, and then you pitch your yeast. Give it your average strength beer is going to be right around 5%. You can anywhere from a week to 2 weeks of fermentation.
Okay.
And then at that point, you can either bottle it, which is a lot of work, or keg it, which is what most of us in the club do, just simply because it's a lot easier.
It's like filling one 5-gallon bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot less work.
Yeah.
And then you carbonate it, and then you serve it and drink it. Now, the extract process is only a little bit more involved.
All grain process.
No, all grain.
I'm sorry, all grain. I said extract. All grain is a little bit more involved, but you have a lot more freedom. You're not working with someone else's recipe or ingredients. You're basically taking the raw grain, not truly raw grain, but malted grain, and you've got a lot of choice of what grains, and you can add a little bit of this and add a little bit of that, and get really creative with it, and you mash it. And what that mash process is the natural enzymes present in that grain will convert the starches into sugar. So you're extracting that sugar, and then roughly at that point, you're at the same point that you would be as if you were doing extract brewing. You've got all the sugar water, called wort, and at that point you're adding hops and whatever other ingredients, and at that point it's all the same.
And so the variation that you can get by brewing all grain versus extract is those grains are toasted at different temperatures, so you get different flavors in depending upon the amount of toast. They can toast it dry or toast it wet, and if it's wet, it caramelizes, so you get an altogether different flavor from that. And so you think of something like a Guinness or this brown ale, you think, well, the grain must be really dark. Well, most of the grain is the light toasted base malt where you get the fermentability.
Yeah.
But then you can add something that looks almost like coffee, a really dark roasted grain will give it that color. And then there's all different grains in between.
When I first started, your choice of extract was light, medium, and dark.
Exactly.
And that was it. And then that was pretty much
Light,
it.
medium, dark for everything.
Pretty much
Yes,
for
that was
base extract.
So light would be just
Pilsner.
Like what you were drinking.
like the hot blonde.
And that's
here.
just the base malt.
Medium would be
Just like, a
amber.
little bit lighter than that.
Like a reddish.
Yeah.
It
okay.
doesn't-
So medium, kind of
that
like a
part
red.
doesn't matter anymore because those went away.
Yeah.
What we've got now
Yeah.
is much more emphasis on making good extract recipes. For example, you can
Okay.
get if you like Two Hearted Ale IPA, you can get that clone in extract recipe, all packaged, ready to go.
Really?
And you could do it, and you can crank it out and have it in your fermentation bucket within 3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours to
And-
make your favorite beer.
So pick your favorite
That's
beer.
not the process. That's not until you're drinking it, but
Well, yeah.
That's the very first step.
until it's sitting in the formation in the fermentation bucket, and then it's getting ready to go because you still got 2-3 weeks.
Dude,
Well,
after
actually,
that,
yeah.
2 weeks, something
We
like
can
that.
probably cut it short, like 10 days. Depends on how fast it
I
goes.
said it depends on how strong
Yeah.
how strong you make it. Anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks is typical.
If you want it,
Speaking of which, you want to get
Beach?
Beej in here for refills?
No, I'm good right
I'll
now.
take one. Mr. Beej, can we have a refill? Thank you, sir.
And listening to you guys talk, it sounds like homebrewing is it's very much an art form almost. I mean, it sounds like you've kind of each
If I
got
can
your
interrupt,
own.
these three guys are all grainers, and they're better than I am. Scott and
We're
I,
just different than
who
you
this
are.
Scott who?
Scott Mackenzie, who this whole brew
Okay.
fest, we brewed together, and we were
Okay.
extract brewers, and we thoroughly enjoyed just doing it together.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was about a 3-hour process. We sit there and stand over his stove, and we'd usually cook up about 10 gallons each, 5 gallons each, different recipes, and you have a beer in hand, chat while we're doing it, watch a football game, whatever he's doing. So it is easier, and you need less equipment with extract brewing.
Okay.
And I don't want to, and it's a good way to get started. You can probably get by, I don't know how much, what, a couple $100.
This is Beej, one of the
$100
Salty Nut All-Stars,
Get
ladies and
everything you
gentlemen.
need.
Thank you.
Actually, probably less than that. I mean, you really only need a good sized cooking pot and
Yeah.
a bucket. I think my first kit, other than the price of the ingredients, and the price of the ingredients are probably what, $20?
$20, $30, yeah.
So that'll produce 5 gallons of
That
beer.
produces
Which is
5
about
gallons.
2 cases of beer.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 cases of beer, and you can buy. You can either save your bottles if they're non-screw-off bottles or you can buy bottles, and bottling it is a matter of just buying the caps and cleaning your bottles well. Sanitation is very important. You don't want to get the germs in there.
So
And,
I don't use the same buckets and stuff I do to like wash my truck or anything.
No, you use food grade plastic buckets. Like they look like Home Depot
Microbes
buckets.
are important. Not in these.
But,
not in this case, though.
Sour
No.
beers.
Not even sour, medicinal.
Sour beers. Yeah, let's get Mike into sour beers.
But no, so you don't. It's not much of expense to first start extract brewing, and dude, I'm going to gradually go.
Ladies
to all
and gentlemen,
grain.
again, Beej.
Yeah, so I'd say about $100 for equipment, and then $20 for your first recipe, your first kit ingredients.
I would not get
Okay.
Mr. Beer.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but Mr. Beer sells a kit and it's terrible. You just need to. In fact, we have a good homebrew shop now.
You
starting
Were
up.
Beer?
Wish You Were Beer.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
have
Go
got
up
a
there,
lot of
talk to
equipment.
Chris.
Go to them, talk to Robo. He will tell you everything you need to do.
Yeah, and Wish Your Beer is right up the street from Salty. They have a massive selection up there. Will, what'd you have to add?
Well, I mean, what I'm getting from this is it's kind of the joy of kind of like an art form, getting everything together, figuring out what you like, but it's also just kind of a community. that you guys have.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's very much about just kind of a culture of getting together.
Well, there's the whole Rocket City Brewers Club that's been around, and then what's the other club?
Huntsville Hopheads.
Huntsville Hopheads. So yeah, there's a couple clubs here in town.
One
and
more.
That's
We got 256.
And we got 256 brewers. 200.
I'm not aware of those.
Those they're out in northwest Huntsville.
Okay.
And they're going to be supplying 8 kegs to our event.
Okay.
Nice.
So
we're going to get to that here in just a second too.
The point I'm making though is that it's easy to make a beer by yourself, drink it, and decide, well, I like it or I don't like it. Well, why don't you like it? It's hard to get that feedback if you don't have some of that prior experience.
Absolutely.
From other brewers. And so that was what really stepped up my game, is when I joined the club and I could bring a beer and they could tell me, oh, it's just pretty good. You might try this or that, or this is bad and this is why it's bad. You did this wrong. And you can tell, many times you can tell what they did wrong simply
by just tasting.
And
so when I went to the one at Green Bus, Jason invited me. Like I said earlier, he drove, and it was awesome. It was an awesome environment. First off, because I love Green Bus. It's small, quaint, nice, very personable. Yeah. And so when the beer started flowing and they started passing everything around, I think the first 2 we tasted, they were really good. Then the third one went around, and that's when a lot of people started giving constructive criticism, and that's exactly what it was constructive. And it's not like these guys flip tables over and cuss people out, flipping them the bird and tell them to get bent. It's like, oh, thanks. And they pull their note and they kind of make notes a little bit and kind of know what to do the next time around. But all in all, how many beers do y'all think we tasted? Because Todd, I know you were there. I know that Jason was there, and you were there too, Rich.
Our typical meetings probably about 15 to 20 people.
Yeah, about 15 to 20 beers.
And typically most people will bring 2 beers minimum, so that's already 30 beers right there.
And we're not talking about tastes, guys. We're talking about tastes.
And so you
beer.
send it around and you take a taste, and that's usually enough to get a sense of the beer.
At the end of the night, you've probably had 2 pints. We're not really.
You're exactly right. So
unless it's
2 16-ounce beers.
High-gravity beer.
I actually kind of was like, you got some more of that, and would get just a little bit more. But you had what did you say, 25 beers that were possibly tasted that night, and some ice cream. We had maybe 6 of them that were like, But the funny thing is,
I actually think it was less than that.
Was it less?
I think it was only
before the glass hit the ground or hit the bar. You got brewers in this place telling you exactly what you did. Hey, I think that possibly you did
so
this.
So it's fun to bring your good beer and have everybody pat you on the back and tell how well you did.
Hell with that,
but if you're trying to figure out what
Yeah.
you did wrong, if you can't figure out what your mistake was, is it my recipe? Was it the way I brewed it? Was it something in my process, post fermentation or whatever?
You learn much more from a bad beer than you ever do from a good beer.
That's right. So you're
if you made a good beer, okay, you're done. There's no more you really need to do.
And Todd and I have entered beers in competitions for the same reason, because if you send your beer to the competition, even if you don't think this is a winner, if you have people that are experts in evaluating beers that will tell you, this is what I tasted in your beer, this is the reason it tastes that way, and here's how you can make it better, that's worth the feedback.
A long time ago, when I first joined the club, me and a guy that's no longer in the club, he moved away, we went and judged in Memphis. And we brought all the bad beers back.
Judge Todd here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, Rich and I judged.
Judge Rich.
And we brought all the bad beers back. And because we recognized, okay, this beer has this flaw, we can pass that around to other people and they can taste it and know what that flaw is.
That's brilliant.
And being able to identify it later on. And it's like I said, if you get just a little bit of it of a beer, it's kind of hard to know what it is going on with that. But if you get a beer that's just flat out, it's got that right in your face, you'll never forget that flavor again.
Yeah.
So the camaraderie, the helping each other out, figuring out what's going on with the recipes and all that kind of stuff. As far as Homebrew-fest goes, right? It's for in honor of Scott.
It's a Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrewfest. Yes.
So
I'll
if you
start
guys
into that.
just talk a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah, jump in,
Talk
Russ.
about Scott.
Yeah, okay.
So Russ is the one that kind of brought this around to us. We know that he has the ins and outs of it, and like Will was just keying in on, is that this is the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrew Fest.
Right.
So when is it? Where is it?
Okay, it's November 11th
Yes.
at Low Mill, and it's going to be from 3 to 9 p.m. Now, and let me tell you how it all started. Scott and I, we're best buddies. We're best friends, we're also business partners.
Okay.
And he taught me how to brew. I
So,
brewed with him.
Can I ask you what you guys did as far as business partners?
We were in the rental house business,
Okay.
as well as we were both engineers, and we did that on the side. And so we worked together on that. Bought a few rental houses and fixed them up, and then rented them out. But and we went skiing together. You know, we hung out a lot.
I used to go skiing with Scott.
Yeah.
And Russ.
And so Scott acquired brain cancer about 2 years ago, and he passed away last April. And he was also a big bicyclist. You'll see the bicycle theme.
Yes.
As well as a brewer, and he did a lot of that. And we're thinking, you know, how can we honor Scott? As he was a very honorable guy, and we thought about doing this homebrew fest. And it's all local homebrewers, all in town. It's not any of the people who sell beer. These are all people who do it for fun and their own enjoyment. And we started passing the word around. Many of the brewers knew Scott. There are many that do not, but they've come in and offered their homebrew, and we've got right now 42 kegs of beer. 42 kegs of beer lined up.
Awesome.
And it is open to the public. It's free of charge. When you come in, if you're of legal age, you'll get a free plastic sample cup to sample, and tickets for 18 samples. All right, we're limiting how many samples you can have.
Responsible.
Yes, be responsible drinkers. And if you want, you can purchase a nice commemorative glass, which is a little bit larger than the sample cup, and use it.
Let me see that, Russ.
Sure. And that glass has this picture on it.
Got Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrew Fest 2017. Got you an STA logo on the back of it, too.
And that sample glass will be selling for $20. And again, all proceeds are going to charity, and the charity is going to benefit Huntsville Hospital Hospice Family Care.
So why did you pick Huntsville Hospice?
They were fantastic during the last few months of Scott's life. Scott has a family. They work with his wife and his children, and they help guide them through the final stages of Scott's life and help guide Scott. And he was adamant during his final days that we honor that hospice organization. It's a nonprofit organization. It's the only hospice organization that's nonprofit here in Huntsville.
Yep.
And so we're doing that. And so all proceeds that come out of this event, we're going to also be selling T-shirts with this. It's going to be a nice optic yellow T-shirt, bright. It's similar to the one Scott is showing wearing here, except without the logo. It's going to have a logo on it.
So kind of the biker's orange, kind of very bright neon yellow, screaming at you.
It's where
chartreuse.
People will see you. Yes. And in fact.
So how can the community jump in here? I mean, so you have the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrew Fest 2017. It's going to be at Low Mill.
November 11th.
And so it's going to be from 3 o'clock until
9 p.m.
3 to 9. When the community shows up, how do we donate? How do we get this money to Huntsville Hospice?
Well,
in honor of Scott's wishes.
You can buy a T-shirt with the logo on it, or you can buy a sample glass, and there'll be a couple other things where we're going to be, selling things like pretzels and small items. But if you buy a T-shirt, that'd be great.
So T-shirts, we have sample glasses are going to be available. Will Grice is going to be doing tattoos. We'll do something.
Okay.
We'll be out there. We'll do something. And this is going to be a really good thing. You guys should be very proud of this, because this man's wish was for this Huntsville Hospice to be recognized.
That's
and
great.
So this is really cool, because y'all are kind of bringing the Homebrew Fest back, but with a little bit of a twist as the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrew Fest.
Even the previous, we had, it was about 3 years ago when the last Homebrew Fest was. It was at Straight to Ale, and even that one, actually, all the proceeds went to charity. It's always been
it's always been a charity-based organization.
Charity-based.
Always.
But there was a gap there of a couple of years, and then when Straight to Ale moved from their old location here,
Yep.
and actually Straight to Ale was supposed to host it, but ABC regulations dictated they not, and that's
Right.
where we're now
Yeah.
at Low Mill.
And Low Mill's a great venue.
Yeah.
And so what we look at is we're going to do November the 11th from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. the Scott Mackenzie Memorial Homebrew Fest. 42 kegs of beer from homebrewers all across. Is it just Madison County? Where's it all coming from?
Pretty much Madison County. I don't
Wow.
know anybody.
42
that's outside
from
of
Madison County. That's going to be amazing. And so we have memorial glasses that we're going to be available for sale, for purchase for 20 bucks.
That's correct.
We have t-shirts available for
$10.
$10. So come out, buy you a glass. You're going to be limited on, you're going to get a limited amount of tickets, which is how many again?
18 tickets for
18 tickets.
18 pours. So you have to sample carefully, figure out what you want.
Moderation is key, people.
Yes.
Uber out there if you think you're going to be overserved. But come out there and have fun. Mr. Grice, closing thoughts, please, sir.
Yeah, I think this is just an awesome thing that you guys are doing, and
Thank you.
excuse me, I think it speaks to just the community that you guys have with the homebrewers in town, with each other, and to come together and do this for in Scott's memory for something that he was very passionate about. Like I said, it's something that I've never really thought about. There's a home brewing club,
Right.
but it seems like a really unique and just awesome thing to be a part of. Right?
Yes, absolutely. So, from the bottom of our hearts, do you want to add something, Mr. Cherry?
Yeah, so we're going to end up having all of us, obviously all the home brewers that are presenting beers are going to be out there at the event to talk about what it is that goes into home brewing. We also want to end up having it as kind of a little bit of an outreach to get people to understand a little bit more about brewing, because everybody wants to come out to the bars and the breweries and all that kind of stuff and rah beer. That's great and all, but at the same time, the reason why we all got into it is because of the fact that it's kind of an art form, which is kind of another reason why Low Mill makes a really good venue for it. So it's
Very good point.
Very good point.
It's very much a form of art.
Sure.
We get to create
And you
things.
get to drink it.
And you get to drink it. And you can drink a lot of it and get drunk. But the big thing is that we're going to end up having representation out from all the different homebrew clubs in town. And anybody that wants to come out and obviously enjoy all the different homebrew that is available, which is going to be a lot.
Yes,
It's a
42
really-
different kegs.
Another thing to bring up, it's sort of been somewhat mentioned, but with those 42 different kegs, you've got 42 different styles of
Yes.
beer. So if there's a style of beer that you've never heard of or never seen or hasn't been brewed locally, it's a really good opportunity to sample that style and find out if you like it or don't like it or whatever.
Yeah, and talk
And it's
to
free.
the brewers that are actually going to be there serving their own beers. So we have $20 memorial glasses, we have tasting glasses, we have $10 shirts. All this is going to Huntsville Hospice, which is making a major impact across the city right now. Todd, Russ, Jason, Rich, thank you guys all. And here's a glass raise to Scott Mackenzie.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers around, everybody. And thank you guys at home for tuning in to Huntsville Insider, your inside source for all things Huntsville. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Thank you.
Cheers.